My wedding day was supposed to be the happiest day of my life, but it turned into a nightmare when my ex showed up uninvited. In front of all our guests, she accused me of cheating on my bride, with her for months. What happened next changed everything. The morning of my wedding felt like something out of a dream. The sun shone brightly over the venue, casting a golden glow on the outdoor setup we had painstakingly planned for months. White chairs lined the aisle, adorned with soft blush roses and eucalyptus leaves. Every detail, from the music to the personalized table settings, was exactly how Emma and I had envisioned it. Emma was in the bridal suite, but that didn't stop her from sending me a flurry of texts that morning. Her messages were filled with sweet anticipation. "I can't believe this is happening, and don't cry when you see me, I know you will." I laughed as I read them, knowing she was probably right. Meanwhile, my best man, Ryan, was doing his best to keep my nerves in check. "You've got this," he said, clapping me on the back. "Just don't trip on your way down the aisle, or she might reconsider." His teasing helped, pulling me out of my thoughts and reminding me that this day was meant to be celebrated, not overanalyzed. The venue buzzed with energy as our families arrived, hugging and chatting like old friends. My mom wiped tears from her eyes as she adjusted my tie for the 100th time, while Emma's dad gave me a firm handshake and said, "Take good care of her, son." The weight of his words hit me, but it wasn't overwhelming. It felt right, like I was exactly where I was meant to be. As the ceremony time approached, I caught a glimpse of Emma through the window. She was standing near the bridal suite entrance, laughing with her maid of honor. She hadn't seen me, but I couldn't take my eyes off her. Her dress, a soft ivory with delicate lace details, flowed perfectly around her, and her smile lit up the entire space. I felt my chest tighten, not with nerves but with awe. Emma had always been beautiful to me, but today she looked like everything I'd ever dreamed of and more. In that moment, I was certain that nothing, absolutely nothing, could ruin this day. The officiant called everyone to their places, and the soft hum of conversation quieted as the ceremony began. The music swelled, and my heart raced as the bridal party made their way down the aisle, each step bringing me closer to seeing Emma again. When the doors finally opened and she appeared, time seemed to stop. She locked eyes with me, and I saw everything we'd built together, every laugh, every challenge, every moment of love, reflected in her gaze. I felt like the luckiest man alive. If only I'd known that this perfect moment would be shattered just hours later. But in that instant, all I could think about was how I couldn't wait to call Emma my wife. The ceremony was everything we'd hoped for. Emma and I exchanged vows that we'd written ourselves, bringing tears to the eyes of nearly everyone in the audience. When the officiant declared us husband and wife, the applause was deafening, and the kiss we shared felt like the culmination of every happy moment we'd ever had together. The reception was a continuation of the magic. The music was perfect, the food was delicious, and the energy in the room was electric. Emma and I floated from table to table, thanking our guests and soaking in the love and joy that filled the air. For a moment, I let myself believe that nothing could go wrong. But then I saw her, Rachel, my ex-girlfriend. She was standing near the entrance, just far enough from the crowd to avoid drawing attention but close enough for me to recognize her instantly. My heart sank. Her black dress stood out among the pastel tones and light suits of the wedding party. She wasn't supposed to be here. She wasn't invited, and I hadn't spoken to her in years. I tried to keep my composure as I excused myself from Emma's side, leaving her in the middle of a conversation with her maid of honor. My stomach churned as I approached Rachel, my mind racing with questions. What was she doing here? How did she even know about the wedding? "Rachel," I said, my voice low but firm. "What are you doing here?" She turned to face me, her expression unreadable. "We need to talk," she said simply. "Talk," I repeated, struggling to keep my voice calm. "This is my wedding. You can't just show up here uninvited." She shrugged, glancing around the room. "I figured you wouldn't invite me," she said, her tone casual, almost smug. "But I couldn't let you marry her without knowing the truth." My blood ran cold. "What are you talking about?" Rachel leaned in slightly, her voice dropping to a whisper. "You've been lying to her, haven't you? About us." I stared at her, stunned. "There is no us," I said, my voice sharp. "We broke up years ago, Rachel. Whatever this is, it's not real." She smirked, pulling out her phone. "Oh, it's real. And I have the proof." Panic began to creep in as she scrolled through her screen. I glanced over my shoulder, making sure no one was paying attention. Emma was still laughing with her friends, blissfully unaware of the storm brewing just a few feet away. Rachel, I said, lowering my voice, I don't know what you think you're doing, but you need to leave.
Now.
Her eyes narrowed, and for the first time, I saw the anger simmering beneath her calm facade. Not until everyone knows who you really are. My stomach dropped. Whatever Rachel had planned, it was clear she wasn't going to leave quietly. And as much as I wanted to protect Emma from whatever chaos was about to unfold, I knew there was no way to stop it now. The perfect day I thought I was having? It was about to take a turn I'd never forget. Rachel's voice trembled as she repeated, "We need to talk." But it wasn't just nerves. I could see something else in her eyes. Determination. "Rachel, this isn't the time or place," I said, trying to keep my patience. "Whatever you think you need to say, it can wait." "No, it can't," she snapped, her voice growing louder. She glanced around the room, and I realized too late what she was about to do. "I can't let you go through with this without the truth coming out." My chest tightened. "What truth?" I demanded, my voice barely above a whisper. Rachel's lips curled into a small, vindictive smile. She turned toward the crowd, raising her voice so it carried across the room. "He's been cheating on you, Emma. With me. The entire time you were together." The reception came to an abrupt halt. Conversations died mid-sentence, the cheerful music faded into the background, and every pair of eyes in the room locked onto us. Emma's laughter, which had been ringing out just moments ago, stopped cold. She turned to look at us, her expression frozen in confusion and disbelief. "What is she talking about?" she asked, her voice trembling. My stomach dropped, and my pulse pounded in my ears. "Emma, I have no idea what she's talking about," I said quickly, stepping toward her. "This isn't true." But Rachel wasn't finished. She reached into her purse and pulled out her phone, holding it up like a weapon. "You want proof? Here it is." She tapped her screen, and a series of screenshots appeared. From where I was standing, I couldn't make out the details, but the text bubbles were unmistakable. "These are messages between him and me," she said, addressing the crowd now. "Flirting, meeting up, planning our next rendezvous. He's been lying to you this whole time." Emma's face went pale. She stared at me, her eyes wide with shock and betrayal. "Is this true?" she asked, her voice barely audible. "No," I said, shaking my head furiously. "Emma, I swear, it's not true. Those messages, they're fake. I don't even know where she got them." The murmurs of the guests began to rise, a mix of confusion and judgment. I could feel their eyes on me, their assumptions settling into place. Rachel stood there, triumphant, basking in the chaos she created. Ryan, my best man, stepped forward, his face a mix of anger and disbelief. "Rachel, this isn't the time or place for whatever grudge you're holding. You need to leave before you ruin more than you already have." "I'm not ruining anything," Rachel snapped. "I'm saving Emma from a liar." Emma looked between the two of us, her tears brimming. "I don't understand," she whispered. "Why would she make this up? And why do those messages look so real?" "Because she's trying to ruin this," I said, desperation creeping into my voice. "Emma, you know me. You know I'd never do this to you." But in her eyes, I could see the doubt taking root. The perfect day we'd built together was unraveling, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. Rachel's bombshell had landed, and its impact would change everything. Emma's face drained of color as she stared at me, then at Rachel. Her lips parted slightly, but no sound came out at first. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. "What is she talking about?" I stepped toward her, my heart pounding in my chest. "Emma, it's not true," I said, the words tumbling out quickly. "I haven't spoken to Rachel in years. She's lying." But Rachel wasn't backing down. She crossed her arms, her smug expression making my blood boil. "Oh, really?" she said, her tone dripping with faux innocence. "Then maybe you can explain these." Rachel pulled out her phone and tapped on the screen, holding it up for Emma to see. From where I stood, I could just make out the messages displayed, messages that appeared to be between Rachel and me. They were filled with flirtation, plans to meet up, and vague promises that made my stomach turn. Emma's hands trembled as she took the phone, her eyes scanning the messages. With every line she read, I saw the doubt growing in her expression. "I don't understand," she said, looking up at me. These look real. Are you telling me she made all of this up?" "Yes," I said, my voice firm but desperate. "Emma, I swear to you, I didn't send those messages. I don't know how she got them, but they're fake." Rachel let out a bitter laugh. "Fake?" That's a convenient excuse, she said. You can't even admit it, can you? Not even now, in front of everyone. The murmurs of the guests around us grew louder, a wave of judgment and confusion that felt suffocating. I could feel the weight of their stares, their silent questions cutting into me like knives. Ryan, my best man, stepped in, his voice sharp. Rachel, this is insane. If you really cared about the truth, you wouldn't be doing this here, at his wedding. Why not? Rachel shot back. Emma deserves to know the truth before she makes the biggest mistake of her life. And the truth is, he's been lying to her all along. Emma took a shaky step back, clutching the phone like it was the only thing grounding her. I need to know what's real, she said, her voice breaking. Because, right now, I don't know who to believe. Emma, you know me, I pleaded, my voice trembling. You know how much I love you. Rachel is doing this to hurt us, to ruin what we have. Rachel raised an eyebrow, her smile widening. Or maybe I'm doing it because I'm tired of being the other woman. Emma's sharp inhale felt like a punch to my gut. I reached out to her, but she took another step back, her eyes now glistening with tears. I need time, she said, her voice barely steady. I need to think. As Emma turned and walked away, Rachel stood there, victorious, while I was left reeling. The happiest day of my life had been reduced to chaos, and I had no idea how to fix it. The room spun as I stared at the messages Rachel had shown Emma. They looked disturbingly real, time-stamped texts full of playful flirtation and intimate details, as if they'd been ripped straight out of a secret affair. My heart raced, not with guilt, but with frustration. These are fake, I said firmly, my voice shaking with anger. I never sent those. Emma's hands trembled as she held the phone, her eyes darting between the messages and me. But they look real, she said, her voice cracking. Why would she make this up? What would she even have to gain? I don't know, I said, the desperation in my voice rising. But I swear to you, Emma, I have never cheated on you. Rachel is lying. Rachel let out a hollow laugh. Lying? Oh, please. Do you honestly think anyone here believes you? She gestured to the stunned crowd, their whispers growing louder as they watched the scene unfold like a reality show. Ryan stepped forward, his face a mask of controlled fury. Rachel, you've made your point. Whatever this is, you're ruining his wedding day. If you cared about anyone but yourself, you'd leave. I care about Emma, Rachel shot back, glaring at Ryan. She deserves to know the truth. He's been playing her for a fool, and I'm not going to let him get away with it. Emma turned back to me, her eyes now brimming with tears. I want to believe you, she said quietly. But I need to understand. Why does she have these messages? How could she fake something like this? I don't know, I said again, the words feeling hollow even to me. But I would never do this to you, Emma. You have to believe me. Her lip quivered, and she shook her head. I don't know what to believe. Rachel took another step closer, her voice softening just enough to sound convincing. Emma, think about it. He didn't tell you I was coming because he knew what I'd say. He's been keeping this from you, just like he kept me hidden while we were together. I didn't invite her, I snapped, my frustration boiling over. She wasn't supposed to be here. This is all a setup. Rachel ignored me, focusing solely on Emma. Ask yourself this. Why would I lie? What do I gain from this, except the humiliation of standing here, bearing my soul in front of strangers? Emma looked torn, her gaze shifting between us, as if searching for some sign of truth. I need space, she said finally, stepping away from both of us. I can't do this right now. Emma, I called after her, my chest tightening as she walked toward the door. She didn't look back. Rachel smiled faintly, a glint of satisfaction in her eyes. Face it, she said coldly. The truth always comes out. As Rachel turned and walked away, I was left standing in the center of the room, surrounded by a crowd of guests who now seemed more like strangers. The perfect day I had dreamed of was in shambles, and the only person who could help me pick up the pieces didn't trust me anymore. But I wasn't about to let Rachel win. Not like this. Ryan stepped between Rachel and me, his expression a mixture of disbelief and frustration. Rachel, this is not the time or place for whatever grudge you're holding, he said, his voice calm but firm. If you really think you have proof, deal with it after the wedding. But right now you're making a scene, and you need to leave. Rachel folded her arms, her jaw tightening as she glared at him. Oh, I'm sorry, she said, her tone dripping with sarcasm. Am I ruining the happy little fairy tale? Maybe that's because the groom is a liar, and I'm the only one here with the guts to say it. She turned back to Emma, her voice rising. He's been leading me on for months, Emma. Telling me he wasn't sure about marrying you, that he still had feelings for me. I'm not going to let him stand up here and pretend to be this perfect guy while he's lying to your face. Emma stood frozen, her face pale and her hands trembling. Her eyes darted between me and Rachel, her confusion and hurt plain to see. Is that true? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Of course not, I said, the desperation in my voice evident. Emma, you have to believe me. She's making this up. Rachel scoffed. Making it up? Are you kidding me? Do you think I'd humiliate myself in front of all these people if I didn't have the truth on my side? Ryan held up a hand, trying to calm the growing tension. Rachel, enough, he said sternly. Whatever you think happened, this isn't how you handle it. You've made your point. Now leave before you ruin more than you already have. But Rachel wasn't backing down. Her voice grew louder, cutting through the murmurs of the guests. You're all being fooled by him, she shouted. He's a liar, and I have the proof to back it up. Emma's hands clenched into fists, her voice trembling as she spoke. I need answers, she said, her eyes locked on mine. I can't just stand here and pretend this isn't happening. What's the truth, and why would she say these things if they weren't true? Emma, I don't know why she's doing this, I said, my voice shaking with frustration and fear. But you know me. You know I wouldn't do this to you. Rachel stepped forward, holding up her phone again. Oh, he's good, Emma. Real good. He's got the excuses down, doesn't he? But let me tell you something. You deserve to know the truth before you make the biggest mistake of your life. I couldn't take it anymore. Rachel, stop. I shouted, my voice echoing through the room. You're lying and you know it. You weren't invited to this wedding, and you have no right to be here. The crowd murmured, the tension in the room thick enough to cut with a knife. Emma looked torn, her tears threatening to spill over. I don't know who to believe, she said, her voice cracking. I thought I knew you, but now… Emma, please, I said, stepping toward her. Look at me. You know me. You know how much I love you. Don't let her take this away from us. Rachel's voice cut through the air again, sharp and cold. He's been lying to you since the beginning, Emma. You deserve better than that. Ryan turned to Rachel, his patience clearly at its end. You've done enough, he said, his voice firm. If you don't leave now, I'll call security and have them escort you out. But the damage was already done. As Rachel finally stormed out, Emma turned to me, her face a mixture of heartbreak and confusion. I need time, she said softly. I can't do this right now. I watched helplessly as she walked away, leaving me standing alone in the wreckage of what was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. The rest of the reception passed in a daze. The joyful energy that had once filled the room was replaced with a heavy cloud of unease. Guests whispered amongst themselves, their glances filled with pity and judgment. Emma stayed on the far side of the room, speaking only when necessary, her laughter and smiles completely gone. Rachel had been escorted out by Ryan and a couple of other guests, her protests echoing in the distance as she was dragged away. But her absence didn't erase the damage she'd caused. The seed of doubt she had planted now hung between Emma and me, growing with every passing moment of silence. I went through the motions for the rest of the evening, smiling stiffly for the guests and thanking them for coming, but my mind was elsewhere. I knew that once the reception ended, I'd have to confront the fallout head-on, and I had no idea if Emma was ready to hear me out. That night, after the last of the guests had left, Emma and I sat down in the living room of our honeymoon suite. The air between us was thick with tension, the joy of the day now replaced with suspicion and heartbreak. I need to know the truth, Emma said, her voice steady but strained. If there's anything you're hiding, now's the time to tell me. I'm not hiding anything, I said firmly. Emma, I swear to you, Rachel's lying. Whatever those messages are, they didn't come from me. I pulled out my phone and handed it to her. Check everything, I said. Texts, emails, apps, whatever you need to see. I have nothing to hide. She hesitated for a moment before taking the phone, scrolling through my messages with a furrowed brow. I watched as she sifted through every conversation, her eyes scanning for anything that might match the screenshots Rachel had shown her. Nothing, she murmured after several minutes. There's nothing here that matches what she showed me. Because I didn't send those messages, I said, my voice firm but not unkind. Emma, someone must have faked them. I don't know why Rachel's doing this, but I promise you, I would never betray you like that. Emma sighed, setting my phone down on the table. Then how do you explain the messages? They looked real, and they had details about our relationship, things Rachel couldn't have just guessed. I rubbed my temples, frustration bubbling to the surface. I don't know, I admitted. But I'll find out. If Rachel faked those messages, there has to be a way to prove it. She looked at me, her eyes filled with a mix of hope and uncertainty. I want to believe you, she said softly. I really do. But I need time to figure out what's real and what's not. Her words hit me like a punch to the gut, but I nodded. Take all the time you need, I said. I'll do whatever it takes to prove that Rachel's lying. As Emma retreated to the bedroom, I sat alone in the living room, the weight of the day pressing down on me. I thought about Rachel's smirk as she held up her phone, the way she'd reveled in the chaos she'd created. Something about the messages didn't add up. Emma was right about that. Rachel had known details about our relationship, things that were private and personal. But how? I didn't have the answers yet, but one thing was clear. I wasn't going to let Rachel destroy my marriage. Not without a fight. The days that followed were a blur of tension and determination. I couldn't sit back and let Rachel's lies fester, not when they had the potential to destroy my marriage before it even had a chance to begin. Ryan, my ever-loyal best man, refused to let me face the mess alone. We'll figure this out, he said with absolute certainty. There's no way she gets away with this. Our first step was to analyze the screenshots Rachel had shown Emma. Luckily, Ryan had a friend, Liam, who was a self-proclaimed tech genius. Send me whatever you have, Liam said over the phone. If it's fake, I'll find the cracks. When Ryan and I met with him, Liam wasted no time diving into the images. Within an hour, he turned his laptop toward us with a triumphant grin. Here's the thing about forging messages, he said, pointing to the screen. It's nearly impossible to make them perfect. These are doctored, no question about it. Liam walked us through the inconsistencies. The timestamps didn't match the standard formatting used by most messaging apps, and subtle differences in the font revealed that the text had been manipulated. Even the profile picture on the message thread was blurry and mismatched, a clear sign of editing. I don't know who this Rachel person is, Liam said, but she went to a lot of effort to make this look convincing. Still, it's fake. Relief washed over me as I stared at the proof. Finally, I had something tangible, evidence that Rachel's entire claim was a fabrication. But even as the relief settled, anger bubbled beneath the surface. Rachel had gone to extreme lengths to sabotage my relationship, and for what? Revenge? Spite? Armed with the report Liam compiled, Ryan and I headed back to the hotel where Emma and I were staying. My hands trembled as I knocked on the door of our suite, clutching the evidence like a lifeline. Emma opened the door, her expression guarded but curious. Can we talk? I asked gently, holding up the folder. She nodded and stepped aside, letting me in. We sat down on the couch, the tension between us palpable. What is that? She asked, her voice wary. It's proof, I said, handing her the folder. Ryan and I worked with Liam to analyze the screenshots Rachel showed you. They're fake, Emma. She doctored them to make it look like I was cheating, but it's not true. I'd never do that to you. Emma opened the folder, her eyes scanning the report. Liam's findings were laid out clearly, with side-by-side comparisons and detailed explanations of how the screenshots had been altered. I watched her closely, my heart pounding as I waited for her reaction. Her expression softened as she flipped through the pages. Tears welled up in her eyes, and when she finally looked at me, her voice was thick with emotion. I believe you, she said quietly, the words like a balm to my soul. Relief flooded me, and I reached for her hands. Emma, I don't know why Rachel did this, I said, my voice steady. But what I do know is that I love you. I always have, and I always will. You're the only person I want to spend my life with. Tears streamed down her face as she nodded. I'm sorry I doubted you, she said. I wanted to believe you, but everything felt so real. I didn't know what to think. You don't need to apologize, I said, pulling her into a hug. Rachel was trying to hurt us, but she didn't win. We're stronger than this. For the first time since the reception, I felt a glimmer of hope. Rachel's lies had almost torn us apart, but the truth had prevailed. And with Emma by my side, I knew we could face whatever came next together. With the truth finally in hand, there was one last thing I needed to do. Confront Rachel. I couldn't let her walk away from this unscathed, not after the chaos she'd caused. The lies, the humiliation, the doubt she'd planted in Emma's mind, it all demanded an explanation. Tracking her down wasn't hard. She'd stayed in town after the wedding, likely savoring the fallout she'd orchestrated. Ryan and I found her at a small cafe downtown, sipping a coffee like she didn't have a care in the world. As I approached her table, her eyes met mine, and for a brief moment, I saw a flicker of something, guilt, perhaps, or maybe just annoyance at being caught. She set her cup down and leaned back in her chair, her expression calm. "Well, if it isn't the groom," she said, her voice laced with sarcasm. I didn't waste time with pleasantries. "Why, Rachel?" I demanded, my voice low but firm. "Why would you try to ruin my wedding? What could you possibly gain from this?" Her composure cracked, and her face twisted with anger. "Why?" she spat, leaning forward. "Because you left me. Your name. You moved on like I meant nothing to you, like I was some disposable phase in your life. Do you have any idea how much that hurt?" Her words were sharp, but they didn't justify what she'd done. "So what?" I said, my disbelief mounting. "You thought the best way to handle your pain was to sabotage my wedding? To humiliate me and hurt Emma in the process?" Rachel's eyes glistened with unshed tears, but her anger didn't waver. "You have no idea what it was like for me after you left," she said, her voice trembling. "I gave you everything, and you just walked away. Then, a year later, I see pictures of you and her all over social media, happy and in love. You didn't even care what that did to me?" I shook my head, trying to process her twisted logic. "Rachel, we ended because we weren't right for each other. You know that. You even agreed at the time. But what you did, what you tried to do, it's beyond cruel." She crossed her arms, her jaw tightening. "You're right. It was cruel. But you know what? It felt good. For once, I got to be the one in control. I got to make you feel what I felt." Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. She wasn't remorseful. She was proud of what she'd done. "You didn't just hurt me, Rachel," I said, my voice steady despite the anger simmering beneath the surface. "You hurt Emma. She didn't deserve any of this. She's innocent, but you dragged her into your vendetta like she was some pawn in your game." Rachel's expression faltered for a moment, but she quickly masked it with a defiant glare. "I didn't mean to hurt her," she muttered. I wanted you to feel what I felt. That's all." I stood there, staring at her, my disbelief growing with every word she said. "You didn't just hurt Emma and me," I said. "You embarrassed yourself. Everyone at that wedding saw the truth, your bitterness, your desperation. If you thought this would make you look strong, it didn't. It just made you look pitiful." Rachel flinched at my words, but I didn't care. I wasn't going to sugarcoat the truth for her. As I turned to leave, she called after me, her voice tinged with desperation. "For what it's worth," she said quietly, "I'm sorry. I just didn't know how to let go." I paused but didn't look back. "Figure it out, Rachel," I said firmly. "And stay out of my life." Walking away from that cafe felt like shedding a heavy weight. Rachel's motives were clear now: selfishness, anger, and unresolved pain. But I couldn't let her baggage drag me down any longer. My focus was on Emma and repairing the trust Rachel had tried so hard to break. For the first time since the wedding, I felt like we could finally move forward. Together. The days following my confrontation with Rachel were a mixture of relief and exhaustion. I had finally confronted the storm she had unleashed, and with the truth exposed, I was ready to focus on what truly mattered: repairing the bond with Emma. It wasn't a smooth path. The damage Rachel had caused didn't magically disappear, and Emma and I had to navigate through moments of doubt and lingering pain. We spent hours talking, sometimes calmly, sometimes with frustration, about everything that had happened. She asked hard questions. How did Rachel know so much about us? Why didn't I see the red flags sooner? Questions that forced me to be honest, even when the answers weren't easy to give. But through it all, one thing remained constant. We loved each other. And that love gave us the strength to face the scars Rachel had left behind and begin the process of healing. Emma was honest about her feelings. "It's not that I didn't believe you," she said one night as we sat on the couch, her hand in mine. "It's just, seeing those messages, hearing her say those things, it made me question everything I thought I knew." I nodded, squeezing her hand. "I get it. If the roles were reversed, I'd probably feel the same way. But Emma, I promise you, there was never a moment when I doubted us. Not once." Her eyes softened, and she leaned into me. "I believe you," she said quietly. "I think I always did deep down. But it's going to take time for me to forget how it felt in that moment." "I don't expect you to forget," I said, my voice steady. "I just want to show you that you can trust me." every day for as long as it takes. And that became my focus, proving to Emma, through actions, that my love and loyalty were unwavering. Slowly but surely, the trust Rachel had tried to destroy began to rebuild itself. As for Rachel, I cut her out of my life completely. She tried to reach out once, sending a message that was half apology, half excuse. "I let my emotions get the better of me," she wrote. "I hope someday you can forgive me." I never responded. Some lines, I realized, can't be uncrossed. Forgiving Rachel wasn't something I could do, not when her actions had been so calculated and cruel. My priority was Emma, not giving Rachel the closure she so desperately sought. Looking back, the ordeal tested our relationship in ways I never expected. It forced Emma and me to face some hard truths about trust, communication, and how we navigated challenges as a couple. But it also proved something important. Our love was worth fighting for. Today, Emma and I are stronger than ever. We've learned to lean on each other in ways we didn't before, to talk openly about our fears and insecurities instead of letting them fester. Rachel's actions, while devastating at the time, ultimately became a catalyst for growth. They reminded us of the importance of choosing each other every single day, even when things get hard. Our wedding day wasn't perfect, not by a long shot. But in the end, it became a story of resilience, of two people refusing to let lies and jealousy destroy what they had built together. And as I sit here, watching Emma laugh at something on her phone, her hand resting lightly on my arm, I realize that we've come out of it stronger. Because love isn't about avoiding challenges, it's about facing them together. And in the end, that's what truly matters.